Which car goes the fastest in a straight line? I can tell you right now, it's not the Mustang, it's a different car. I took most of the popular cars on Paul Ricard on the straight to test them out with lowest and max wing settings. Take note, it is not always smart with some cars to take the wing off, and some cars really thrive with zero wing, where others definitely need the max wing setting. Let's get into it. I'm just hammering it down on the straight. This will be like the full wing setup, and I can tell you right now, if you want to determine the wing setting of the BMW, you should always go for the max wing setting. So you can see we can hit like almost 280. Have a look how this car is performing on a straight when you take off the full wing. And to be honest, you gain some acceleration a little bit, but you suffering in the corners like massively now, and the end top speed isn't even that much higher. So with the Lamborghini is an interesting one, because the Lamborghini on a lot of tracks is going to be a very fast car in the corners, and a lot of times when you run max wing, there's the most lap time potential. But if you got straights like this, you're an absolute sitting duck. And in the setup pack that I built, I constantly making the trade-off in low wing and high wing setups. Now we have absolutely zero wing, and zero wing you can absolutely use on Spa or on Monza, and it will still have quite some stability. Obviously your setup is going to be completely different with low wing, but in this car you can actually get away with that, and you can see how much faster we're already here on this straight, and now we're actually competing let's say with a BMW on the straight. So the Aston Martin is really good with his max wing setting. In the setup pack that I'm using at the moment, I took like some tracks like this one. I take off like 4 clicks of wing, or on Mount Panorama or Monza I would go like 6. But basically every other track, if there's a long straight, you can just put on that max wing and you're not really missing out on straights, and you're gonna be competitive basically everywhere. So you can see that in this clip, but also the next one. So I would never go for a zero wing with the Aston Martin, it doesn't really make sense. But for the purpose of this video, just hammering it down and see where it comes up with, and you'll be surprised where it actually stops on the top speed. So have a look. And if you don't want to bother with all these wing settings and setup changes, you can just buy the packs in my Patreon store. I created a lot of cars already, and the difference between my setups and all the other ones out there, I actually focus on the skill level. So you have level 1 leading up to level 5. 1 will be the easiest, and then you can slowly progress into using more aggressive setups to build up your pace in Assetto Corsa Competizione. Click the link down below. If you are in the occasion of want to do like a nice torture session on yourself, you should definitely pick this car. This car is really lacking on straights when you run it maximum wing, but then when you take it off, it also kind of like wants to murder you every time. But then in other situations you get a lot of understeer. So this car is basically 5-6 kilometers slower on the straights with the full wing setting. So you can really see that this car just like loses the grip very easily when you take this wing off. If you take the wing off though, it will get into some really interesting top speeds. So let's have a look. And this is also going to be interesting for the coming, like the next cars that we're going to get into. This first corner on Paul Ricard it really shows you what you can get away with, like this as well. Yeah, you cannot even touch the brake, you cannot even use steering input, just lose it basically. Now, the Lexus, if it was more competitive on more tracks, then I would definitely consider a season in the Lexus, but I'm not doing that right now. And you know, the most interesting thing about the Lexus is it's gonna be so fast on the straight, even with the max wing setting. Now, it may not show you the absolute top speed with the max wing setting, but we're getting there that quickly. So we're way more back up the straight, and we're already on this currently top speed. And then it sort of like stalls a little bit, but that's actually a point where you're never gonna be on those speeds anymore. So now we're running zero wing on the Lexus. I don't think that is a smart idea, like anywhere, but if you say like some tracks like this one, maybe it should be 8 or 6. To be honest, a lot of times you just want to run this max wing because it's so freaking quick with the full wing setting, and I think the car really thrives when you use the maximum amount of wing, because you're already lacking a little bit of that aero balance pressure on this car. So yeah, if you're just waiting for the Mustang, I think this still outcompetes the Mustang. So yeah, and if you're liking this content, please hit that like button. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. It is fast approaching, so if you're liking this content, please consider subscribing. Now, a funny story about the Audi is really that with the Audi you can actually not get away with any other wing setting. Same as for the BMW. It just makes no sense. If you take the wing off on the Audi, I mean, you're always struggling with that rear end of the car, and if you take off the wing, then like nothing positive will happen. So here we have the nice pressure of that rear wing. Obviously this Arnold's preset, so it's not perfectly balanced for this corner. Basically, maybe if you are like a real rookie and you just want to be fast on straights and you don't really care about corners, you could take the wing off this car. But if you want to be in competitive races, then look at this difference only. It's like 5 kilometers. And when we are hitting this first corner, it also really doesn't end that well. You just basically lose the rear. And yeah. So for the Audi, you always run max wing settings. Now, I really want to go into a whole story about the Bentley and how special it is and how great it is, but I actually have basically no knowledge of this car. But I was overtaking, like people were overtaking me a lot in this car when I was in the Lambo, and I'm actually quite surprised. I didn't even remember how fast this is on the straights. But from what I see here, it doesn't really make sense to run a zero wing with a Bentley, to be honest. So yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about the Bentley. Maybe you can leave a comment down below, like what kind of wing settings you really prefer. Because yeah, I can say something really wise and special, but I have no clue, basically. But yeah, it's like 5 kilometers faster, and I really didn't get the feeling that it was climbing up that faster than with the high wing setting. So the Ferrari 296 is actually super interesting because the difference between high and lowest wing setting is absolutely enormous. So you really need to think about the wing setting with this particular car. Now, this is the max wing setting, obviously the first clip, and you can really use that max wing setting for a lot of like cornery tracks. But when you get up to like tracks with some bunch of straights, it's really lacking the top speed with the high wing setting. Now, when you take the full wing off this car, it is actually super mega quick. But like to really use it on, let's say, this track or Monza or whatever, I would never go lower than 6. And sometimes maybe to get some additional stability I would go 8. But yeah, if you do 0, then it's basically not very easy to control and you will just lose it in corners like this. So the Mustang, I think most of you probably will know if you're a little bit into this game, that this car is super fast on the straights, but it's especially fast also with the high wing setting, and then at some point it starts to drop off a little bit. So over here you can see that's like 280-ish will be the maximum, but it's actually getting there really quickly. So the funny thing is about the Mustang, if you take the complete wing off, it's still pretty much controllable. I wouldn't say it's definitely fast, but in corners, but on the straights it's absolutely awesome. Let's say if you think about Spa, then I would go like 2 or 3 rear wing setting, and like again, this cannot even compete still with the Lexus, yeah. Now the high and low wing settings on the Honda is a bit strange. For my own personal like the experience that I have with this car, let's say I just wanted to avoid like Spa with low wing setting, but then to be competitive you need the low wing, so it's a little bit of a strange trade-off, and it's basically set up for you to lose. But yeah, this car is like mega slow with high wing setting, and it even behaves in a way that it has low wing on this corner. So again, if you want to use the Honda for like some tracks, you're probably not gonna see it here, and you're probably not gonna see it on let's say Spa or tracks with massive straights. You're gonna be a sitting duck with the high wing setting, and with the low wing setting, yeah, if you wanted to end your life and you still want to make it look as an accident, you could really do that in this car, because have a look to this corner. Like, I'm trying to use as least amount of steering input and it's just gone. I also took the McLaren, the old McLaren, for a spin, and I was actually quite surprised how this car is with its top speed when you're running max wing. So that's interesting. I don't really know, or I used to drive this car, I don't really know if this is like still quick, but yeah, I just wanted to put that in this test run, yeah. So with this car, again, I used to drive this, and then the the Evo, like the McLaren Evo came, and I don't know, maybe a lot of people forgot about it, but yeah, have a look. This car is basically not that quicker with a low wing setting, so it's like only like a few kilometers, and yeah, a lot of times, and again, it's still pretty stable, so yeah. So this is the Evo version, and it's actually really different from the old version, because this car with the max wing setting, it is really dragging, and I've seen some posts that people say that you go never higher than 8. So 8 is the max downforce and the rest of it is just drag. So in this instance I put it on 12, but if you like try out if you can get away with 8 in a track with a lot of corners. Now, from every mid-engine car you're gonna run in Assetto Corsa Competizione, this is the rare exception that you always want to run this probably from the lowest ride height front and back, and you can actually run this with 0 or only 1 click of wing or 0 wing on the back, and it will probably still be very stable in fast corners. You can see here as well, super forgiving and super fast in the straights. So the Merc, it's a little bit of a thing, yeah, with the Merc, because the Merc will give you the great acceleration, and at some point it starts to a little bit to drop off, and it doesn't make sense with the Merc to take the wing off, because the Merc will just be on his best performance with his max wing, and as soon as you take off the rear wing, it just starts underperforming in the corners, and you don't gain additional top speed really on the straight. So here it's very nicely, obviously Arnold's preset is very beginner friendly and understeering. So a little bit of a side note on the front splitter. This car has a front splitter. I never use the splitter anymore. It's just creating drag and it's not resulting in better lap times. So it doesn't matter which car in the game you're currently using, take off that front splitter, period. Now we have actually no rear wing, and you can see how this car just doesn't want to go faster. It's like 3 kilometers, 4, and this is a very flat car, and you just lose the back when you're taking off the wing setting. Now the Datsun Godzilla, they name it. A lot of times I would say this car really accelerates nicely in the higher speed ranges, also out of corners. It's really playful, but it's actually not that super quick on a massive straight, especially not with the high wing setting. But we're getting up to some sort of high speeds very early on this straight, so that's why I can really feel this car is fast on straights. But like with max wing setting, an Aston Martin would basically overtake this car if the straight is long enough. Now again, for the Nissan, I really couldn't tell you super accurately, but it doesn't really feel that you should ever take the rear wing off of this car. I was testing this on Spa like a few months ago, and I couldn't really figure out if I would take the wing off, yes or no. So obviously it will be a little bit faster with zero wing, but I also think it's suffering a lot in the corners when you take the wing off. Now, and for some entertainment, I've just decided to put the 991 in here as well. Sometimes I see a question on the Discord, people asking, hey, what about the 991? I'm like, yeah, bruh, just have a look. I'm not really sure. This car just feels... same with the 992, it's a bit slow on the straight. But yeah, I wasn't really driving this car, so I have no clue. Now, what did quite surprise me of this car, if you take the whole wing off, basically, it actually is very forgiving in this forced corner. And that is completely different than the 992. That becomes super unforgiving, and this is basically like pretty quick as well. So you can see how I'm entering this corner. Yeah, obviously we're losing a lot of speed, but like compared to a Honda or an Audi, this is actually pretty forgiving. So basically one of the most interesting cars in this game actually suffers a lot on the straight with max wing, but then if you're in the corners, it is absolutely amazing. Now, in the second run we do obviously the zero wing test, but I personally wouldn't go lower than 6. The potential for you crashing into like oversteer gets really big when you go lower than 6. So yeah, like I said, I would probably go to 6, and that would be basically my lowest as I would go. And I found that a lot of people that were using my setups were also like really happy with those settings. Again, if you put this on 0, then yeah, like what do you actually gain? Like a few kilometers, and over here we can actually save it really well. It's actually quite surprised. I did not remember this when I recorded this. Lol.